Hello, my name is Chris Edwards. I'm one of the instruction librarians at the Eugene McDermott Library at the University of Texas at Dallas. This is just a quick tutorial to introduce you to Early English Books Online, or EEBO for short. EEBO is an ebook collection that is dedicated to historic books from the early English period, and you can find it on our website in a couple of different places. I'm going to demonstrate two ways that you might stumble upon this database. First, your default should always be check our databases and go alphabetically under the letter E. You'll find EEBO listed here. Early English Books Online. This link will get you into the collection, and you would just use your NetID and password to log on. The other way that you might find it is through our ebooks page, and I'm going to run a site search for just the word ebooks. A lot of people will end up on this page if they get a direct link from Google, which is why I wanted to show you this page. This is our ebooks, all of our ebooks by collection. This is a way for you to get into some of our ebooks specifically by where they're coming from, and most of these are thematic collections. You can also find all of our ebooks in our catalog just by searching keywords or titles, and they'll come up. But when you're looking for a really specific set of books, sometimes this is an easier way to get in. So from our homepage, just use the site search button for ebooks and then scroll down to find Early English Books Online. I'm going to go ahead and click that link. And because I'm off campus, as most of us are these days, I will have to use my NetID and password to authenticate myself. So before I do a search, I do want to talk really quickly about the use of the word book in this case. Early English Books Online is actually a collection of monographs, some of which are what we would consider a traditional book. Others are more like a pamphlet or a circular or something that was not really published as a book, but is a standalone publication, meaning it's not part of a periodical or a series. So some of these things that are cataloged as early English books are not specifically or technically speaking books. But I'm sure you would discover that for yourself. So this is now moved over onto Proquest. Proquest is a company that provides databases. So this should be a fairly familiar platform if you've done other database searches. You can search in this collection by keyword. So I'm going to do a real quick search for Culpeper. Which will bring up results that have Culpeper anywhere within the record of the book. So I have 501 results. I'm going to move my border just a little so you can see that better. 501 results, all categorized as books because I am looking at a book collection. I do want to point out some of the refines over here on the left. You can change your sort order if you want to put them in date order, or if you want to leave them on default, which is relevance. Source type. Again, I'm looking at an ebook collection, so they should all be books. You can see breakdown by publication date. You can see the earliest publication, your latest publication, and when your peak period of publication is, which looks like between 1650 and 1659 is when most of these were published. Break it down by author, break it down by subject. So there's a lot of sorts here for you to make this a narrower search. Another way for you to search this is an advanced search, and I want to show you the difference between doing this as an advanced search. So if I were doing an advanced search, I might still use Culpeper, but this time I'm interested in Culpeper as an author, not as a subject. So things by him, not about him. And I can narrow it down further by adding additional keywords that might suggest a subject. Like, for example, if I want to do herbal, or herbal, since these are early English books and they pronounce the H, and run that search, and you'll see that I get a smaller but hopefully more specific set of results. So I have 3 results here, and they are right along 1652 to 1659, so right in that same era. And I always like to point out with historic books that we are talking about that they tend to have longer titles, and they're really specific, especially if they get down to pamphlet levels. So this entire line, including the description of what it is, Culpeper's School of Physic, or the experimental practice of the whole art wherein are contained all inward diseases from the head to the foot with their proper and effectual cures, such diet set down as ought to be observed in sickness or in health, with other self ways for preserving life. That's a chunk of title. It's also interesting to point out in this case, because we're essentially looking at primary sources, that your spelling is not necessarily going to be modern spelling. So physic is not a spelling of what we would use. It's also not a term that we would use for medicine anymore. Ways, another place where the spelling is different. So you might experiment with your keywords with using different archaic spellings of words or different changings of terms. It's also interesting to be aware that many of the things that we in our normal vernacular refer to for people or events may be labels that were applied after the fact, and in that own time they may have had different terms. So just be a little flexible on your keywords. So I'm going to open up this record and show you some of the interesting aspects of navigating this particular collection. So this is an ebook, so they have conveniently broken up into table of contents so you can go directly to a particular part. Your default search is the full text search, and what this is essentially an HTML translation of the text into modern type, which makes it much easier to read. But there is an attached image of the actual page that matches up with the page that you're looking at. So it's a nicely set up, makes it a much easier read, but you can still see the original text. If you prefer, you can switch to image full text, which is the actual scans of the books. And as you can see, these are scans that were taken from historic books. So you have blurring from low quality scanning, you have ink blots, you have archaic fonts. For some older books, you only get the images and they can be quite challenging to read. So it's nice that they provide you both. And then of course you have the whole PDF, which you can open up. And you can download the entire PDF for most of these books. They're old enough that they are no longer covered by current copyright. So you can download an entire book, which you normally can't on an ebook. So I'm going to go back to search and show you another example of a search. So I go back to advanced search. So you might do a search that allows for different options. So modern academic setting, we would usually discuss gender. They might be speaking about specifically women or men, some other vernacular or informal terminology for women. Particularly women tend to be abused in text in older documents, so it's something to be aware of, not only in your keywording, but also as you're reading it. Be prepared for some outdated viewpoints. And then we might do something like disease or sickness or infirmity, and run that search. And I also like this is a particularly interesting database because it points out terms that they have automatically cross-referenced because they've allowed for archaic spelling of diseased, deceased, dices. There's all these weird spellings that you would never guess. So it is quite nicely cross-indexed for that. Books and historical periodicals, which would usually be those pamphlets and etc. So Early English Books Online is a great collection for historical studies or textual studies that are looking at books from this period from the English perspective. I hope that you found this useful. Please remember that you can contact us for help at any time. If you need help, you can reach us using the chat box on the library homepage. We can help you with whatever you need. You can also contact us using the link in the video description. Thank you for watching.